So this is my review straight after the Leeds Bill. Let's start with the main event. Josh Warrington wins by knockout over Patrick Hyland. I believe it was the 9th round that the fight came to a close. Warrington actually looked fairly good in this fight. You know, I've talked about it a few times before in this channel, but Warrington is definitely an improving fighter. The performances he is putting on now are far superior to the performances when he started headlining shows. He's really learned on the job and he has improved. Whether or not he's got the fundamentals and the attributes to fight at the elite level is still something I'm dubious of. But with wins over the likes of Amagassa, with wins over the likes of Patrick Hyland, certainly the fashion with which he's won over Patrick Hyland tonight, I do think that Warrington is a European and fringe world level type fighter at this stage, and whilst I feel he's probably the kind of guy who's going to come up short at world title level, I do think he's maybe earned his shot in that class given his performances. Yeah, we've always known Warrington's a guy with excellent work rate. We've always known he's a guy who throws a lot of punches, brings a lot of pressure. He's actually becoming a slightly more educated boxer, you know, and boxing slightly sharper. His hand speed and combinations are there. You know, obviously he's not the biggest power puncher, which is always going to be an issue at the top level. But nevertheless, I was relatively impressed. Hyland's an experienced guy. He's only lost before at a high level, and Warrington took care of him in decent fashion today. Credit for Hyland. You know, Hyland was hurt twice in the fight. He obviously decided to get up and have one final go, and threw a selection of massive haymakers before getting stopped. He went out on his seal like a true warrior, so credit to him, and credit to Josh Warrington for winning the fight in decisive fashion and for moving on. Let's move down to the next fight on the bill, which was Dave Allen versus Dillian Whyte. It was a fight that never really caught fire. Dillian Whyte came out with the obvious game plan of boxing. He came out southpaw, and we saw him fight southpaw for several rounds of the fight. Dillian was the higher output fighter. He was working behind the jab. He was boxing from range, and he won the fight in dominant fashion. I think Dillian Whyte pretty much won every round of the fight. You know, if I'm honest, you guys know I like Dave Allen, but if I'm honest, I probably scored the fight 10-0 in favour of Dillian Whyte. It was another performance from Dillian Whyte. You know, Dave Allen's the best opponent on his resume as far as I'm concerned, and he's won every single round. And he's boxed a bit smarter than we've seen in the past, so credit goes to Dillian Whyte for that. I do have major concerns with Dillian Whyte about the way he constructs his punches, and fundamentally I believe that unless he improves on that, it's going to be hard for him to move beyond British level. When I talk about the way he constructs his punches, what I see with Dillian Whyte is he kind of flails out the jab. He really sort of pushes out, forces out the straight punches. And where he really generates power, where we see him hurting opponents, are the hooks, the uppercuts, the wide looping punches. And at the world level, those are going to be harder and harder to land. Opponents are going to be dodging them. Opponents are going to be making him miss. And for me, he isn't the smartest boxer fighting behind the long 1-2, fighting behind the jab. His jab just lacks a certain snap, a certain speed, a certain pace behind it that I look for in a world-class heavyweight jab. It was more than enough to deal with Dave Allen tonight, however. As I say, I think I scored him every single round. Dave Allen showed a great heart. He showed a chin of steel in there. At no stage in the fight did Dave Allen even look rocked, let alone look like he was going to get stopped. Dave Allen performed with credit in this fight. You know, as I say, he lost every round. He was slightly outgunned tonight, but he showed enough in there to make me interested in seeing him fight the likes of the Sextons, the likes of the Gary Cornices, the likes of the Ian Lewisons. You know, there's quite a live scene in the domestic division at present, and Dave Allen can certainly mix it up with those guys. And if he gets a few wins under his belt, gets some more experience, potentially he can come again and maybe still go on to win a British title. This was a massive step up for him. He's still very, very young. It's early on in his career. The tips for Dave Allen would be number one, you've got to work on the jab. Dave Allen is going to need a more frequently thrown jab. If you look at the decent heavyweight fighters, most of them have a good jab, and Dave Allen just doesn't throw that jab. Secondly, I think he needs to judge his distance when throwing punches slightly better. You know, he was pouring it on, well, trying to pour it on Dillian Whyte in the late rounds, but he wasn't able to land anything of note because he was getting too close to Dillian. You know, it's all well and good getting on the inside. It's all well and good trying to jag the opponent into a scrap and bring it into the pocket. I thought at times that Dave Allen was getting far too close. You know, they were almost nose to nose, so there was no room at all for him to generate any power or any snap with his punches. So, you know, credit goes to Dave Allen. He's gone the distance against Dillian Whyte. You know, he's shown great heart and great chin. Dillian Whyte has proven that he's a level above the sort of Dave Allen level for now. For me, Dillian Whyte is definitely a British title level fighter. He boxed better than I've seen him box before, utilised the jab. He was the higher volume puncher, looked to be the harder puncher in there. I've got concerns about him stepping up to world level. The stamina concerns are still there for me. Dave Allen was pretty low volume in this fight, was just walking forward for the early rounds, so I'm not sure that fully tested Dillian's stamina. And as I say, the construction of his punches is my biggest fear. He seems to generate power and, you know, generate those knockouts from the wide looping punches, and I think as he steps up in level, it's going to be harder and harder and harder for him to land those punches. When we see him box like he did tonight, which he's going to need to do more, when we see him rely on straight punches, he pushes out those shots quite a bit more rather than having real snap from them. Luke Campbell versus Argenis Mendez. Luke Campbell won in a clear victory on points, having been dropped earlier on in the fight. Odd performance from the opponent, who, despite scoring the knockdown, didn't seem to have too much ambition. Luke Campbell is a good boxer, though. Yeah, this opponent had fought at a high level. I think only 2 fights ago he outpointed Miguel Vazquez, which is very strong form indeed. And, you know, Luke Campbell handled him in fairly convincing fashion tonight, albeit given a few causes for concerns at times with, you know, the fact he was dropped. I think both times he stepped up to fringe world level, he's been dropped, so that's something to consider. I still believe Luke Campbell can make waves. I think he's got to be matched carefully. There was some talk on Twitter today about him potentially fighting Anthony Crolla in future, and stylistically that may actually be a fight that works well for him. Fight of the night for me was actually Coyle versus Tyrone Nurse. And it's funny because Tyrone Nurse, he's got this reputation of being a very technical boxer, you know, having a purist style. But time after time after time, Tyrone Nurse is in the fight of the night. Time after time, he's in the most entertaining fight. Yeah, how many times have we sat down and seen Tyrone Nurse in real barnstormers? And again tonight we had a good clash of styles. We had Nurse, the tall guy, fighting on the back foot, trying to get crisp combinations off from range. We had Tommy Coyle steaming forward, trying to work the body, trying to put Nurse in his back foot, trying to position him against the ropes and unleash heavy leather. And I thought Tommy Coyle was successful, you know, for portions of the fight. He also won round of the rounds 10-8 on my card based on the fact that he scored a knockdown off a jab, which kind of seemed to make Tyrone Nurse lose his footing slightly. I did score the fight to Tyrone Nurse. I know there's been a bit of debate over the scoring of the fight. I had it to Tyrone Nurse. I'd agree with the 115-113 scorecards. Coyle, a warrior. Coyle showing, you know, great heart in there. Fundamentally was slightly lower in boxing pedigree and boxing class than Tyrone Nurse, as we could have probably anticipated. But nevertheless, credit goes to both men. Tyrone Nurse wins another hard-fought decision where his skills and his attributes just about carry him through. Tommy Coyle has shown that he's always going to be involved in entertaining fights, and based on tonight's performance, whilst you get the suspicion Coyle will tend to come up slightly short when he fights class opposition, nevertheless, you wouldn't be against seeing him again. Let me know your thoughts on tonight's bill, people. Whyte versus Allen, Warrington versus Hyland, Nurse, Coyle, Campbell, Mendes. How did you see the fights going? Did you agree with the scoring? And yeah, let me know your thoughts. Is it one that are there particular fighters you're looking forward to seeing next time out? Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Many thanks for watching. I'll try and, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to stay up for Coyle. We shall see. Either way, I'll get a video up tomorrow morning. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Thanks for watching.